to In the Static. This is episode 5. Thanks for joining me. I'm your host, Brandon Keith Osborne. We're in a little bit different studio today. This is a show where we talk to artists, writers, musicians, and industry professionals about why we make the things we make, even when we don't have to. Today, I brought in a very special guest. He was an instructor of mine at my alma mater of Art Center College of Design, where he's been teaching for 45 plus years in Entrepreneurial Spirit. Entrepreneurial. I took his class there, and he's had an illustrious career, and I just thought I'd bring him in today because it's important for me to share how close we need to keep our mentors. And Errol's been a very fine mentor for me throughout my career from the very beginning. And so I would like to introduce you to Errol Gerson. Welcome.
Thank you, Brandon. It's a pleasure to be here. It's great to see you again.
Yeah, it's been quite a journey. I'll share this quick story. When I first moved to LA, I hadn't even gotten a house yet. I didn't have a car, and I showed up to Art Center College of Design for orientation. And I had a backpack full of clothes because no place to live yet. All I knew was I was going to school there. And you gave a speech for all the new students, I was in the photography department, but all the departments were there for all the new incoming students. And it was very inspiring. And I remember going up to you. There's probably like 300 people in the audience. And I went up to you after the speech and I said, someday you're going to talk about me in that speech. And I just knew that I was going to keep you close from there on out. And here we are 20 years later. And I wanted to do something different where we talk about you for a change, because we've always talked about me and what I'm doing. So let's get into the history a little bit. I specifically want to talk about 1999 and the years at CAA, because it was an interesting time. Internet was now all of a sudden on the scene. So if you could share with us kind of what you remember about those days and what it was like, because I think it kind of has the same sort of feeling of uncertainty then, that the industry was changing, or maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. What can you share with me?
Well, a couple of things, Brandon. This year we'll celebrate 55 years at Art Center. 55. I'm sorry. Almost 6,000 students in that time. And if you ask me what are one of the great joys of my life, it's teaching, because I've had a chance to touch the future by sharing my knowledge and my passion for learning with young people like you. That has been a fundamental part of who I am. In 1992, I started an internet company with 4 Art Center graduates. And in 1998, I sold it to a British firm, and the digital revolution was here. Our company had done a couple of pieces of work for Creative Artists Agency. And out of the clear blue sky, I got a call from one of the senior executives saying, our head of new media has just left us. Would you like to interview? And I said, with pleasure, but you got to tell me what you need me to do. So he said, come and have lunch. And I did. And he told me that the agency was deeply concerned that the digital revolution was coming 1,000 miles an hour, and they were not ready.
Right.
They had developed a relationship with Intel, and Intel had built a media lab at CAA. And it was filled with just digital tools that nobody was using. So I interviewed with the president of CAA, Richard Lovett, and 5 of the partners. And 3 days later, they said, job's yours if you want it.
Very cool.
I said, with great pleasure. And I joined, and I immediately began to look at the impact of digital on the 3 most important things at CAA. music, film, and television. When it came to music, Rob Light, who was the head of music, I told him that I had met with the people in the music business who put sound on film, and that on 35 millimeter film, the sound was on the outside right, and it was done in digital format. And I said, I am concerned that that digital format will one day find its way onto CDs. So they sent me to New York to join an industry group which included IBM and Intel and Microsoft and all the music companies, Warner Brothers, Universal, all of them. And I spoke about this thing called MP3. And everybody looked at me as if I was from Mars. And they said, what are you saying? I said, I believe that at some point, young people will write software that will hack music off a CD into a digital format, and then it can be transported anywhere. Now, I won't use the language that they said in it, but they basically told me I was full of SH1T, that it will never happen. IBM went so far as to say, we've already written software. It's called Encryptalope, and it's going to be embedded in every single CD.
So they couldn't pirate it, right?
Right. 6 months went by. There was a big conference in LA. And interestingly, there were 2 Danish kids in the audience, young software hackers. And at this time, Tommy Mottola had just released a CD of his new wife. I'm sorry, I'm forgetting her name, Megastar. And while this music was being released, big PR, these 2 kids hacked it and sent one of the songs by email to Tommy Mottola. Supposedly, he got back to the office, opened the file, and heard the song, and went, oh my God. He contacted CA, and again, met with the music department, and we went to visit a number of music companies, and they basically said that I should be put in a mental institution because this will never happen. Nothing will ever impact the way music is sold in the biggest music stores in the world.
And
Brandon,
as we know, it did.
2 years later, how many record stores were left in LA? 1.
Tower?
Amoeba Music.
Oh, Amoeba, right?
Yeah, Tower was gone. Virgin was gone. They were all gone. And you and I both know that kids discovered
Napster.
Yep.
LimeWire.
Kazaa, LimeWire.
Yeah.
My daughter stole 2,000 songs.
Oh yeah.
And Dad had
that
to
was
go
my
buy
era too.
an iPod, and then a bigger iPod and a bigger one. And so it turns out you never want to be right.
Right.
Because people will think that you are nuts.
Yeah. And there's a method to my madness and why I wanted to talk about that, because when I had started Art Center in 2008, the photography industry hadn't quite gone full digital yet, but it was like a hybrid. There was a lot of digital stuff. The cameras were getting so good, but they weren't to a point where it was like digital can compete with film. It was more of the access changed. So people could, produce work for much cheaper. And specifically, I got into making movies and filmmaking because of DSLR video.
Yes.
Because the access for me to get into cinema was much more difficult before that camera came out. It just made it way more accessible. And I remember that there was almost a fear that my teachers had, that the industry had, that digital was going to take over film, and that, it was soulless and heartless, and it wasn't as nice, and it couldn't be, it didn't print the same, and it was all the same things that we're talking about now with the whole AI image generation stuff. And the reason why I bring this up is not that digital to film is the same as digitizing music to MP3 and being able to email songs and pirate things through Napster, or, the AI revolution. Now everybody's like, it's going to steal our jobs. It's going to do this. Everybody's just going to fake it how they're going to fake it. But from my experience, yeah, the industry did go full digital, and it changed a lot of things, but the industry didn't go away. It just changed, right? And so I think that you had a similar experience with the music stuff back then too. And I just have this feeling, I don't want to be pro AI or, against AI or anything like that. I just want people to not freak out so much, because my grandpa had a great saying, which doesn't make any sense, but it makes perfect sense at the same time. It's just like, everything stays the same. It's just different, right?
Your grandpa was 100% correct. When I saw my father in a three-piece suit, I thought it was the funniest thing I ever saw. 50 years later, I'm wearing a double-breasted three-piece suit. And by the way, I spoke at the APA National Conference about the pending digital revolution, and I got booed.
How so?
The audience said, "This will never happen." Today, one of my dearest friends, Andy Bernstein, Art Center graduate, the Lakers photographer, Kings photographer, inducted in the Hall of Fame. He hasn't shot film in 25 years.
Right.
Everything does stay the same. And this concept that AI is going to make us obsolete is utter nonsense. AI is going to assist me. An AI bot is going to do all the perfunctory things that I normally do, leaving me to do the more important things. AI will work for me. I won't work for AI. It will never happen.
Well said. Yeah, and I feel the same way, and there's Jeff Goldblum in Jurassic Park has that famous quote where he's like, life finds a way, and I believe that art finds a way. So that's, I'll get off my soapbox a little bit about the current weather, and I'll get back into, you said it at the top of the show, that teaching has brought you the greatest joy out of anything that you've done. And you mentioned 6,000 plus students, and how many have gone on to do great things, or even if they didn't continue in art, they took some stuff away from your lessons. Tell me, take me back to the first time you taught. Did it light a fire? Did you always know you wanted to do that, or?
No. I'm sitting in graduate school at USC, and the professor says to me, to the entire class, "Who does not want to write the thesis for my class?" Put my hand up. He says, "See me after class." I go see him after class, and he says, "Errol, congratulations. You no longer have to write a thesis." And I went, "Uh-oh, what's coming now?" He says, "At 4 o'clock today, you have a car?" I said, "Yes, sir." He said, "You will drive to 8333 West 3rd Street. And I said, "Well, why should I go there?" He said, "That is the Art Center College of Design." I'd heard of Art Center. And I said, "Sir, what do you want me to do?" He says, "You're going to go teach my business management class to photographers." And I went, "Oh, no, sir. No, I'm backing out." He goes, "Too late. You've got 4 hours." Brandon, I went to the school at 1:30. It was only 400 students in those days, okay? And I ran around talking until I found 2 of the students in his class. And I said, I'll buy you coffee. Will you talk to me? So we went to have coffee in that funny, you weren't at the old school. Mm. We had coffee and I said, what about his class? And they went, it's the biggest BS in the world. I said, what do you mean? He said, I doodle or I go to sleep or I balance my checking account. I said, why? He said, because he reads to us from some book about management. I said, well, what do you want to learn? The guy said, we're both studio photographers, want to learn how to run a business. Well, I had an undergrad degree in accounting. I was getting a master's in finance. I knew how to do that. So I ran to a bookstore and I bought some accounting paper and I came back to class and I walked in and I went, you're not going to see Professor Grace anymore. You're going to see me. I was the same age as them. Half of them were Vietnam vets on the GR Bill. And I said to them, take out your checkbook, because they had checkbooks in those days. And I had them write down the last 20 bills, what it was for, and put it in columns, and add it all up, and then I made them do a profit and loss statement. I got a standing ovation at the end of the class.
Money talks, right?
Man, I tell you, I couldn't wait for the next week. I went back to school and Professor Gray said, the president of Art Center called and said, whoever you sent to teach, we're replacing you with him. And he said, good, because I'm not coming back. 4 years later, we moved to the Hillside campus in Pasadena. I've been there ever since. Let me tell you why I teach, Brandon. I came to America as a refugee from South Africa. I was in political trouble. I did not believe in apartheid, and I was very vocal. And let's say I had visits from certain members of the police force in South Africa. Had a conversation with my dad, and he said, you have a choice. You can go to jail, or you can get out of this country now. I didn't know what to do, so I went to the American Embassy, and they said to me, here are the names of 10 junior colleges. Write to them. They may accept you, because I knew I couldn't afford a major university. One of the schools was Orange Coast College in Costa Mesa, California. They sent me the exam. I went to the embassy. I took it. They said, you scored 100%. We are granting you permission to come to America to study at Orange Coast College. Here is an F1 visa. That was my escape out of South Africa. On July the 2nd, 1966, I kissed my mom and dad goodbye, my sister. I got on a plane, and I flew to America. I didn't know a single human being. I had nowhere to live, just like you. But I knew one thing. America was the place where my dreams would come true if I worked hard. So I went to the school. The dean of students became a good friend of mine, and he said to me, you're a smart kid. What do you want? I said, I want to go to USC. He said, okay, good grades, get on student government, play sports, help the school raise money. I did all 4. Became student body president, graduated, I think, in the top 1% of my class, and applied to USC, never heard anything. So I was ready to go to Cal State Long Beach because it was cheap and I could afford it. The dean called me in the day of graduation. There was another man in the room. And he said, Errol, shake hands with Dr. Himstreet. Shook his hand. He said, do you know who he is? I said, no. He said, Dean, tell him who you are. He said, Errol, I am the dean of the USC University School of Business. Now my heart started to race. He said, stand up, Errol. I stood up. He reached in his pocket. He took out an envelope, and he handed it to me. He said, open it. Errol Gerson, dear Mr. Gerson, University of Southern California, is pleased to offer you a 2-year full academic scholarship with books. I burst into tears. That was the first day in the rest of my life.
Mm.
The teachers that I had at Orange Coast College were incredible. The teachers I had at USC were incredible. And I knew the only way I could pay it forward was to become a teacher. So while I've become a full professor, I also had an accounting firm, represented mega bands for many, many years, and have consulted in finance and accounting and taxation, and still do to this day. But if you want to ask me what's my joy, Thursday night, 7 to 10. Every Thursday night for the past 55 years.
Yeah, I remember sitting in that chair. I don't know how well I did in your class. I don't remember.
I do well. You did very well.
I just remember the many conversations that we had outside of the classroom. And I just want you to know how important you've been in my career as a photographer and as a filmmaker. There's been many times where I've wanted to quit. And that's what this show is kind of about too. What keeps us going even when we feel like we want to quit. And I think in times like today, it's getting easier and easier for people to quit. And I would just urge anybody out there who's trying to make something to go find yourself someone that's important to you, like Errol here, your teachers, family members, friends that can keep you going. Because I'm not sitting in this chair across from you, if it weren't for your selflessness to get in front of a crowd of kids and, say the things that you do.
Brandon, Albert Einstein said, anybody can quit. It doesn't take any courage to quit. People quit because of one word, fear. Fearful. That's all I hear today from students. Fear of AI, fear of success, fear of this, fear of that. The word fear? It's a stupid word. So I deconstructed it. You know what it means? False evidence that appears real. So what happens? You challenge the false evidence, and then if you change the way you look at things, the things you look at will change. And that word fear becomes finally empowered to achieve results. When my children were little, I would say prayers with them every night of their lives. And the last thing I would tell them is, I believe in you. And both of them have never forgotten. I tell all my students, I believe in you, but it doesn't matter. It matters that you believe in you. All of you have gifts. Every single person has been put on this earth with God-given gifts. You just have to pull away the cobwebs and you'll see them. We have to give before we can receive. The Kingston Trio were an old folk group, long time ago. You don't know who they are. But they wrote a song called Desert Pete. And it's about a man in the desert who's about to die because he's got no water. And he sees a water pump. And he tries to pump it. It won't pump. And he hits the ground and there's a metal sound. He peels away the sand and there's a little box. He opens it up and there's a bottle of water. So he picks it up and he's about to drink it and there's a note. It says, stop! Don't drink this water. It's not for you. It's for the pump. You have to prime the pump.
Right.
And there's a leather washer. Put some water on it. And I promise you, if you do that and you prime the pump, you'll have enough water. And he thinks to himself, okay, I'll do it. And he wets the washer and he puts the water in the pump and of course, the water comes out. The chorus of that song always chokes me up because he says like this: you have to prime the pump. That's your life. You have to give before you can receive. And then it says, drink all the water that you want. Fill your face, wash your feet. Leave the bottle full for others. Thank you kindly, Desert Pete. That's what we got to do, Brandon. This generation has got to learn how to give before they receive. I see the word on Instagram and LinkedIn and all the other places about wanting help. Help is a terrible word. I don't help my clients. I add value to my clients. Because the word help means you're drowning. You're not drowning. My God, if you've got an apartment and there's food in the fridge and you got a bed and you got warm clothes and you got $5 in your pocket, you're wealthier than 3 billion people on earth today. We don't know how lucky we are. And so when I go to bed at night, I look in the mirror and I ask this question: did you do anything today that God will grant you another tomorrow? And I do it every night of my life. And before I close my eyes, I thank God for the day, for my children, for the work that I do, for the teaching. And when I open my eyes the next morning, I do the same thing. I have a hat that is now being sold on the internet.
Yeah, I saw you're in the merch game now.
Yeah. It's called Living with a Gratitude Attitude. Today, Brandon, my concern with the young people that I teach, they have too many expectations.
Outsized expectations.
Yes.
I struggle with that myself.
They think that the world owes them something. The world owes you nothing except what you earn.
Yeah, and I should backpedal there. I struggle with expectations from myself. I don't think that I'm owed anything or entitled to anything. But I think the pressure of success is outsized. It's not balanced with my gratitude, right? You talk about that often, like the attitude of gratitude. And a lot of times I'll get out in front of myself and say, I should be here. I'm holding my hand up, but I'm not looking at how far I've come, and I think it's human to feel that way sometimes.
I have an exercise that I do with students who say this. I make them put their portfolio on the ground from term 1 to term 8 and take a slow walk. And at the end, when they get to week 8, they go, oh my God, look how much I've learned. We are hard on ourselves. And that's because we don't live with what I call the 4 circles of life. People talk about having a balanced life. There's no such thing. It's nonsense. But there are 4 circles, and you have to decide how big each one is. The first one is your work. When you're young, it's a big circle. The second one is your family. If you're married or not married, how big is that circle? The third circle is the community. How much do you give back to your community? Do you belong to the Art Center alumni? Do you go to their events? Do you do charity work? Do you meet with kids? I was a big brother for 19 years. And then here's the 4th one. It's you. And most of the people that I mentor, do you know how big their you circle is? This big. You know how big their work circle is?
Huge.
This big. The family circle? This big. The community circle? That big. You cannot live a fulfilled life unless the four circles are interconnected and they make room for each other.
Yeah, I saw something recently that was pretty powerful. It said, tell me what you love most in your life. And then it says, stop. How far down did you get until you listed yourself? And it's like, well, I wasn't even thinking about myself. And I think that, for me personally, it's tough to look in the mirror and be like, I am successful, I'm powerful, blah, 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 and do that because I'm so focused on the next thing. I'm like, I'll love myself later. I got to get to the finish line right now. And
let me give you a philosophy that might sit well with you. If I am not for myself, then who will be for me? But if I'm for myself alone, then what am I? And if not now, when? That's from a great rabbi. I say it to myself every single day.
It's powerful.
It is powerful. We have such high expectations, but I'm concerned that this generation of Gen Zs don't want to put in the effort. Brandon, when I was at Orange Coast College, I was homeless for 7 months. I worked as a dishwasher at a diner. I slept in the storeroom on a straw bed with one sheet. When it was time for lunch, whatever the busboy brought in from the dining room, that was my lunch. Did I complain about it or say it was disgusting? On the contrary, I was grateful. And I made 30 cents an hour washing dishes. At the end of the day, they gave me $2.40, which was enough to buy a little bit of food and toothpaste, and I was very grateful. If you don't know hard times, when good times come, you don't know how to appreciate them. It's that life balance that matters. Would I change anything in my life if I had a do-over? Not in a million years. Nothing.
I'd change a lot. I'm just being honest with you.
Well, when I was 5, my dad took off, abandoned me. My mom was destitute, so I was put in an orphanage for 5 years. And all I learned in the orphanage was verbal abuse, physical abuse, and sexual abuse. It wasn't a good time. But I never, ever learned to hate. Eventually, Mom married, and I got out. Does the feeling of abandonment ever go away? No. But I don't run away from it. I embrace it. Did I deserve to be there? I can't answer that question. It's a philosophical question. But at the end of the day, it made me one tough SOB. I knew when I got out of there, I could handle anything.
Yeah, they say good times breed weak men. Hard times breed strong men.
Yes, sir.
And women, sorry.
Yeah, no, it's gender neutral. There's a reticence today to want to jump in and work hard and give everything you've got, and like you guys did back then. And I'm seeing a significant change over the last 20 years in the students at Art Center. The curiosity level seems to have reduced. I ask a question in class, and there's deafening silence. when you were there, I asked a question, 15 hands would go up.
And debate, probably.
We would debate for hours, and that's changed.
Well, I recently heard a man speak about how everything's recorded these days. So people don't dance at concerts anymore because they're afraid they're going to be put on the internet. People don't speak up in class because if they say the wrong thing, they might become a meme or something. So I think a little bit of what you're speaking to is just an unwillingness to share because it's being observed all the time. You know?
Yeah, we're being watched 24 hours a day. And I think part of my concern, not fear, about AI is the big brother concept of it, that many of the AI companies who have military aspirations want to move into facial recognition technology, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, not move into it. They've already moved into
Yes.
it. You know, so.
Yes.
But we just continue making the art because that's what we love. And
Without art, there's nothing.
yeah, and going back to what I was saying, when digital photography took over film, and it didn't take over. It's just the same thing as vinyl records gave way to cassette tapes, gave way to CDs, gave way to MP3. There's a nostalgia and there's a want and a need to use old mediums. There's painters out there who only paint with horsehair brushes, because that's their thing. I think a lot of times we can get caught up with, oh no, AI is here and that's the only thing we can use anymore. And it's just not true.
No. Not true at all. People forget. You remember the Industrial Revolution?
No, I don't.
What had they said? That the minute we had the Industrial Revolution and steam engines, there'd be no jobs.
Right.
The exact opposite.
Yeah. You're the second person to say that to me this week, that they thought the Industrial Revolution, it's like, oh, nobody has to work anymore. And it like tripled, right?
Yeah. When I hear speeches from AI gurus saying that 10 to 20% of the American workforce will disappear, I'm not sure what medicine they're on, but they are saying things that are blatantly untrue. What will happen? Water always seeks its balance, right? You put a block of ice into water, the water goes up, the ice melts, and comes back down. Same with AI. Water will always seek its balance. AI will catapult for the next 5 to 7 years, and then there will be a shaking out period, much like 2000 and 2021, when we had the dot-coms become dot-bombs.
Right.
A lot of these AI companies will fall by the wayside.
Yeah, and I heard it put so, profoundly. It was like, people forget that word processing was a person's job before it was a computer program.
Absolutely.
And so, yeah, that job went away, but that didn't take away the person who uses word processor, the program, So I think we focus too much about what's getting taken away from us and not the opportunity to what we haven't done yet. And, I think we have to be optimistic. And
what's the alternative?
Stalemate.
There's a great story about 2 kids who were put in a room. And one room there was a lot of toys, and the other room there was horse dung. After 5 minutes they walked in and the kid was crying. So what are you crying about? Said, there's so many toys but I only have 15 minutes. That's terrible. They went to the other room. Kid was smiling. He was so excited. They said, "Why are you excited?" He said, "Well, there's horse dung. If there's horse dung, there must be a horse." That's the difference between pessimism and optimism, is seeing the good. If you look for the good, you will find it. If you do the opposite, you will find it. Words to live by.
Yeah. So we talked about, I mean, it's clear you're a very passionate man about teaching, and you've been able to continue that all these years. You've written a book. How many books have you written?
I've written 2.
2 books. And where can we find those books?
Actually, the first one, which is called 50, was only 250 copies by my choice. They're sold out, and the leftover money, which wasn't much, went to charity. The second book I attempted to publish on Amazon after sending it to publishers and were rejected, which is perfectly fine. And let's just say that that book is just sitting there, and at some point I hope somebody will pick it up and do something with it. Because self-publishing is not an easy thing in this country. But what am I most passionate about? Well, that's easy. I have 4 grandchildren, and they are the way I breathe every day. They play soccer 6 days a week. They're all in club soccer, and they're all highly talented. They are the light of my life.
How old are they now?
16, 11, 10, and 8.
Wow. Keeps you busy, huh?
Oh, the best busy in the world. There's nothing better.
Well, you touched on something when you mentioned that I just want to kind of rap about for a second, rejection. And rejection is a huge part about our business. And it can make or break a lot of artists. And I know it's something that I've had to deal with. Like right now I have a sci-fi novel that I'm actively querying. You get form rejections, and then you go and you write your query letter to make sure that you have the hook right. And it's very hard to break out. So you get a lot of rejection. And you hear a lot of artists who have made it who say, man, I had to go through all of this before I got the yes. So I guess, what's your advice to somebody who just keeps walking through that door of rejection over and over again?
I reject the word rejection.
Of course you do.
It doesn't have a part in my life. I embrace learning. My first interview after I got my MBA was with IBM. I got rejected. So what did I do? I wrote to the interviewer, and I asked if I could come back to ask some questions. No response. I wrote again. No response. I wrote 7 letters. Eventually, I got a response. You're a pain in the... Yes, you can come. So I went, and he said, why'd you come? I said, sir, I highly respect both you and this company. I wanted to work for you, but your company decided that I was not right. For me, it's all about learning. I want to know from you, sir, what could I have done that would have made a better impression or given you a better reason to hire me? He spent 25 minutes telling me. I used it in my next interview and got a job with one of the largest accounting firms in America. So, Brandon, Sylvester Stallone, do you know how long he pitched Rambo?
Was it Rocky?
Rocky, sorry.
No. Yeah, it was like 10 years.
10 years. 10 years.
Well, he held out because he also wanted to be the lead role.
Yes.
There's a movie coming out about it.
But he held out 3,650 days. And he never gave up hope. Because you see, in Shawshank Redemption,
Another great
when
film.
he gets out, he writes to his friend Red, and he says, if you're reading this, you must have gotten out. I'm asking you to come just one more step. He says, Red, hope is the best of things, and the best of things can never die. Your script, I believe, will eventually be made. Do I know when? No. When the time is right.
Right.
But you have to continue your belief in yourself and your script. And I know that you're making it better, embellishing it, getting people to read and make comments to it. So what are you doing? You're making it ready to be made. And it will be. You know, Forrest Gump took 10 years to make. Castaway took 10 years to make. Robert Zemeckis didn't want to make it. But Tom Hanks knew. When Tom Hanks did Saving Private Ryan, they offered him a big salary, and he rejected it. He said, I'll take X% of the gross. And they said, what if it bombs? He said, then I won't earn anything. Can you imagine what he's earned of his royalties from Saving Private Ryan? That wasn't a risk. That was a belief in self. When we believe in ourselves, other people will see it, feel it, and begin to believe in us. But if they see fear, they get pushed away. I can smell it like I can smell a great steak on a grill. And it's nonsense. It's just a word.
Well, I think that this has been fantastic, and I hope that our listeners are getting a taste of what it can be like if you have somebody special in your life who can mentor you and keep you going, because what all of this is about is building community and strengthening each other and lifting each other up. It's that empathy that Errol was talking about. You know, you said you never learn to hate. And I think that's so important, that artists lift other artists up. It's not who can get to the top fastest. It's that we all get to the top. So as always, my sit downs with you leave me with a very heartfelt, warm feeling in my chest. And I really appreciate you and all that you do for everybody who's ever come in contact with you. So thank you for coming in. And for everybody else, I hope you've enjoyed this episode. Please check out the full video on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. Like, subscribe, lift each other up. And if you want to write in, if you need some encouragement from me, or if you have suggestions or questions, you can write me at inthestaticpod@gmail.com. And thanks so much, Errol, for coming in.
Thank you, Brandon. It's been a great pleasure seeing you. Wonderful. Thank you.
That's In the Static. If this conversation meant something to you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Subscribe wherever you listen. New episodes whenever the signal comes through.